Health Week continues here on Feedback this week with Randy Rice from Clarion University's Keeling Health Center. Also, I'll be giving you my weekly update on the presidential campaign. It's all tonight on Feedback. Welcome to Feedback. I'm Mark Tespadakis. As I said, we're continuing Health Week. We talked with the American Red Cross last night, and tonight we'll be talking with Randy Rice from Clarion University's Keeling Health Center. That's coming up in a little bit, but as I promised, it seems every week I talk a little bit about presidential politics, since it seems like we've been talking about this presidential campaign for eons now, and it's still eons away. The latest news we've heard in the last week or so that Bill Bradley has lost the endorsement from the AFL-CIO to Al Gore. Now, I say lost because at one time it would have seemed like it was expected to go to Al Gore, but it's turning into that there's a much closer race there between Bill Bradley and Al Gore, including a new poll that came out last week showing that the gap is really closing there. Al Gore's still ahead, but the gap is really closing. And also last week we saw Al Gore's first campaign ad came out, and that came out against the nuclear test ban treaty, which was also big news in Washington last week with the Senate voting to reject that. But the United States actually is still agreeing not to test any nuclear weapons, was something they've agreed to since 1992. So that puts a lot of really interesting spin on this. We've heard about that a lot. That's what I want to tell you about presidential politics, but another thing I wanted to pick up on was an op-ed piece by George Will that ran in the nation's papers this past weekend. He made an interesting point. The media have seemed to have been pushing for campaign finance reform, sort of promoting it. But the media still wants their First Amendment rights. Well, George Will is saying you're putting shackles on speech is what the title of his piece was called, because campaign finance reform in a way is an expression of free speech, as is the media's right for First Amendment rights. Now, before I read this, I was sort of saying, yeah, I think we need some campaign finance reform. But after I read this, I think I may have changed my mind on this whole thing, because George Will makes a really good point, because if I want to give $5,000 to a candidate, I should be allowed to, because that's my free speech. I'm expressing my views by giving the money. But it seems in the media, I guess I could say, have been portraying it in a bad light, because they're saying, well, there's too much money and now poor people can't run, which may be true, but you have to look at it from both angles. Again, it's one of these stories, as I see all the time in politics and in everything, that is so close to being both sides of the fence that I can agree with both sides. Maybe that's a good thing, since I should be fair on most issues, but that's something that really stuck out for me this weekend. So if you have a chance to read that, a lot of papers I know reprint George Will's things throughout the week, so if you see that, you might want to take a look at that, or even look at it on the internet. If you don't like campaign finance reform, you might want to read it, because it might change your views on the whole thing. It changed mine. That's what I wanted to update you on this week, but when we come back, as I said, we will continue with Health Week, and Randy Rice from the Keeling Health Center will be joining us after this.
Early years, young children cannot stand on their own. Uniting parents and children is an important part of the life of a community. Stand for Children encourages people to make a personal commitment to stand for the health of children. 300,000 Americans marched in Washington, D.C. last June to support Stand for Children Day. Stand for Children seeks to lift the belief that children need our help to stand.
Yeah! Yeah! Who's the man? It's my birthday. I'm the mayor. It's my birthday.
Exercised lately?
Go for a mouthful, go for the fun.
Oh, go for cake.
Cakes are for everyone. Just one stack is what it takes. And it's gopher cakes. Open wide, stuff your face. There's always room for more gopher cakes. Empty the box, then reload. Eat those gopher cakes till you explode.
Exercised lately?
Till you explode.
Sad, looking back now, the things you go through in life. Scary. The worst thing about being on welfare was to get my kids what they really wanted. I had to get a better life for my girls and myself. I got off welfare. I got a good job. Makes me the happiest mother in the world. I live for my girls.
We're not asking you to hire everyone on welfare, just one.
Welcome back to Feedback. I'm Mark Despotakis, continuing Health Week here on Feedback. Randy Rice from the Keeling Health Center at Clarion University is joining us. Thanks for joining us today.
For having me.
Let's start out with basically what your position is and what you do at Keeling.
I'm the Director of Student Health Services. I've been here since, I've been here for 4 years now. And basically I'm the administrator of the health center. I'm responsible for the day-to-day operation of the health center. I'm responsible for program planning. I'm responsible for the educational activities, overseeing the educational activities that we perform at the health center.
Okay. You sort of did it there, but a brief overview of everything that is offered through the health center.
Probably the best way to describe it, it's very similar to what you'd find in your family physician's office. Our physicians, we have 2 physicians on contract from Northwest Medical Center. They do an excellent job for us. They're board certified in family practice. That's their background, that's their history. The one physician staffs one of the local, the Fifth Avenue Family Practice Center.
And what else is on? Who else do you have on your staff?
We have one certified registered nurse practitioner. Susan Bornak does an excellent job for us. She's also certified in family practice. We have 4 registered nurses. All of those nurses, all of our full-time nurses are certified in college health. It's a specialty recognized by the American Nursing Association. And it's really impressive that all of our nurses, I think our youngest nurse has close to 7 years of experience specifically on our staff. So in terms of the qualifications and the experience, we're really pretty proud of the group that we have up there.
Is this on all college campuses? I mean, are there health centers? Is this general?
College health is relatively new to me. I come from hospitals, and I was really impressed. College health is found, you'll find student health centers on most college campuses. Some of them are even attached to hospitals and full-blown medical centers in the larger metropolitan areas. But the vast majority of universities and colleges will have some type of service similar to ours on their campus.
Now, Keeling is just for students, correct?
That's correct, and as a matter of fact, it's for students specifically of the Clarion campus.
Oh, okay. Now let's go through a scenario. Let's say I have a cold and I want some treatment. Take me through everything I need to do.
Well, the first thing we'd encourage you to do is to think about self-care. What we try to do, it's real common. We'll see it particularly in freshmen. They'll wake up in the middle of the night and something's going on, something hurts, they don't feel good, they're sick and they know something's wrong. And they go to try to find some help, and they find out real quick there's not, in the middle of the night, there's not a whole lot of help around, and it's easy to panic, it's easy to be frightened by the symptoms that they're having. One of the things that we've done just in the last couple of years is provide each of the resident assistants and each of the resident directors with a self-care guide that'll take students through basically, I don't want to say diagnosing themselves, but assessing the symptoms that they're having. You know, there's a tendency to, to go to the emergency room. They want to talk to a physician right now. They have to see, a board-certified physician immediately, or something terrible is going to happen. And most often that's not the case. What this resource does is basically walk them through an assessment to figure out, yes, I really do need to go to the emergency room, and I need to get there as soon as I can. I might even need to have somebody call an ambulance for me. More often than not, it'll give you some instructions on things that you can do to get yourself through the night, maybe to get yourself through the next couple of days. This is the kind of thing that a lot of what we see are things that are going to run their course, really regardless of what we do. Our biggest role a lot of the time is just to provide some support and reassurance and some instructions on how to make yourself more comfortable. If there is some indication to see a physician or to see a nurse or some question about whether you need to or not, the first thing you should do is call the health center. And more often than not, we'll have you speak with a nurse, and she'll take your symptoms and assign some priority to your appointment. More often than not, there's an appointment available the same day. If you call in the morning, it's very unusual to go out more than the next day, again, depending on your schedule. Once an appointment is scheduled, you'd actually come to the health center where you're assessed by a physician, the nurse practitioner, or a nurse, or some combination of all the above, and then we do whatever needs done.
Okay, back to the self-care guide. Is that maybe a reaction because you had a lot of students just coming to the health center?
This is really my estimate, and there's a lot of arguments both ways. But I've estimated about 30% of the students that come to the health center are coming to the health center, seeing a physician, seeing a nurse practitioner, for symptoms that could really be managed independently with some information. It's not our expectation right off the bat for the student to know what's wrong and to know what to do about that. But again, we'd like to give them those tools. A couple of things that does is, to the extent that we see anything like 30% of the students coming to the health center for things that they could manage on their own, that would free up appointments for the students that absolutely positively need to be seen by a physician or a nurse practitioner or one of our nurses. And that's still a substantial number, about 70% of our students.
So is that a current statistic? I mean, are you still seeing students just coming to the health center for something that really isn't necessary?
Well, again, I don't mean to suggest not necessary from a strictly clinical perspective. Support and reassurance is a big part of what we do, and I don't mean to minimize that at all. But again, that bears some consequence to the student that that is seriously ill, maybe seriously ill, and really needs the appointment that somebody with symptoms that they might be able to manage on their own. I guess one of the biggest things that we try to do is not have the students be frightened if they don't need to be, or any of us to be frightened if we don't need to be.
The self-care guide is obviously a way to get word out to the students. What else is Keeling doing to get the word out?
Just recently, again within the past couple of years, a lot of things have happened in the past couple of years. We have a nurse that's assigned part-time to a nurse educator function. Her name's Darlene Hartle. Many students have heard of her. She's responsible for doing active programming out in the residence halls, out in the community. We'll have a lot of students call for class projects and things like that, and she has a whole bag of tricks. I mean, she'll come out and she'll do a presentation, and she's got props and demonstrations and on issues that the students are interested in or concerned about. Some of them are fun, massage, and some of the alternative therapies. Some of them are more serious, HIV and AIDS, other sexually transmitted diseases, alcohol abuse, relationship violence, and things like that. She also does passive programming, and when I say passive programming, I mean things like helping with bulletin boards or pamphlets, and of course the potty press.
Right, as I said, Darlene Hartle, and immediately the same thing.
Darlene potty press, right.
Does she like that?
She loves it. She loves it. I know the students love it. It's probably one of the greatest things that we've done. We consistently get good feedback on that. And again, it's a real simple tool. There's a lot of other schools that it certainly wasn't our idea, but it's a good way of getting basic information out to a captive audience.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk more about things like that, the potty press and other things going on when we come back. We're going to take a break. More about the Keeling Health Center after this.
Introducing new frequent phone hours.
Use the phone just 8 hours a week and get this free phone cradle. Use it 12 hours and get a speakerphone.
Use it 15 hours and get this cool headset.
Or stay on the phone 20 hours a week
And get a pasty complexion.
flabby body, and a great new nickname at school.
Exercised lately.
I like all my friends to be there. I want my mother to be there. My hair's gonna be done so beautiful. A lot of music, a nice blue dress. I want to be beautiful for every single person that goes there. If I get shot, I want to have a nice funeral.
Every day, 10 children are killed by gunfire. Help stop the violence. Call 1-800-WE-PREVENT for free information. Not one more lost life. Not one more grieving family. Not one more.
It's not just about making plans. It's about making a difference. And taking an interest, not just earning it. At Ed, more than investing, it's about knowing you.
My every hope, my life, my world, it all begins with a dream.
Edward Jones, investing in you and your dreams.
In Clarion, see Gary Martin, located on Main Street. Phone 226-7896.
And we're back on Feedback. It's Health Week here on Feedback, back with Randy Rice from the Keeling Health Center. Now, we were talking a little bit about the potty press, and you're saying good response. Now, is that all Darlene? Is that all that she does, or are there other people who have been put into that?
It was real interesting. The first, I'd say the first handful of issues, it was almost entirely Darlene's doing. And then once the students took an interest, I'd say up to half of what you see in the potty press is actually guest contributed or written by Clarion University students.
And speaking as a student, I think it's certainly a good way to get the information out, because one thing I heard about in there was flu shots. What can you tell me about flu shots at Keeling this year?
Flu shots are interesting this year. We had originally anticipated giving the flu shot, offering the flu shots to students this week, beginning today. The Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, is actually holding about half of the flu vaccine that's being produced. Consequently, we've not received our flu vaccine that was ordered back in the spring semester. And a lot of the other area care providers are experiencing the same consequence. It's difficult at Clarion to get your flu shot this year. It could be difficult in a lot of different places.
And what does that mean for Clarion then?
What it means is that we're working as hard as we can to get whatever amounts of the vaccine that we can get our hands on. We're talking several times a day with our suppliers. It may mean, worst case scenario is that we may not receive any flu vaccine at all for the students. Best case scenario is we may be able to get some in here as early as tomorrow afternoon.
Based on past experience of that, do you get a lot of interest in getting the flu vaccine?
We're seeing, it varies a little bit, but there's an increasing interest. We've been much more active in promoting the vaccine in the last couple of years, and consequently we're seeing more students take the opportunity. One of the things that we've done, instead of requiring students to come to the health center to get the shot, we're going out to the residence halls and we're going out to some of the public areas on campus to administer the vaccine.
Speaking of residence halls, I always hear about programs going on in the halls. Could you give us an overview of some of those things going on?
Very similar. They're scheduled on a requested basis. Very similar to the topics I mentioned Darlene doing at anyone's request, really. Lots of information on alternative therapies. That's a real area of interest. Massage and such. The other areas where we see interest are in sexually transmitted diseases, alcohol use, and curiously, one of the things that we see is students wanting information not so much on their own use or decisions to use alcohol, but on their friends or even their family, and how alcohol has affected their lives in some way, alcohol or drug abuse.
Okay. billing. Everyone wants to know about money. Everything revolves around money. How does billing work at Keeling?
It's really a pretty good deal. There's a student health services fee that's assessed to all students at the beginning of the semester. And basically the privilege that gives you is an unlimited number of visits to the Keeling Health Center where you can be assessed by the physician, the nurse practitioner, any combination of all the above, and there's no charge for that. That's the kind of thing walking into most any other physician's office, $30 to $45 just to walk in the door. That's built into the student fees here. Once you're at the health center, we have a pricing strategy in place. It's most likely for most of our medications there'll be some type of fee associated with the administration of medications or the types of procedures that we perform. Again, if you compare our prices to what you'd find in most any community, we're able to keep those prices a lot lower. I think the average charge coming out of the health center for students that actually pay, and only about 80% of the students actually pay any type of charge, is less than $13.
And that's generally something the student pays, that's not insurance? Or?
Well, what we do is we'll bill student accounts. The student doesn't need to bring any form of payment to the health center with them. We'll provide them with a receipt, and the receipt is made in such a way that they can turn it into their insurance carrier, and we get very few calls from students with any concern that their insurance hasn't paid. Of course, a lot of the time the charges are so small that the insurance company doesn't pay. It's not that big a deal.
Right. Speaking of something we were talking about a little bit earlier, accreditation, is there anything that the health center needs to be accredited just because it's a college health center?
It's not absolutely necessary from a technical perspective, and in my mind it is absolutely necessary. Of the 14 state system of higher education universities, only one of those is currently accredited. I just received in the mail today our application pack for pursuing accreditation. So we're pursuing that very aggressively.
And who accredits that?
There's basically two groups. The first one is the AAHC, the Association for Accreditation of Ambulatory Healthcare Organizations. And the other one is almost as much of a mouthful. It's the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Healthcare Organizations. So two basic organizations that perform that function.
Okay. Something that I heard about before I came back to school this fall was that the study out by some college health foundation or something like that about bacterial meningitis, that they were saying that's something this year that college students need to be wary of. Have you had concerns about this or heard about this?
Meningitis is probably one of our highest concerns. This is a population, the way that situation that students live in, very close proximity to each other, lots of close contact. Meningitis is a concern, and it's something that we monitor for and have emergency plans in place for. The study, and there's been several, but the American College Health Association, based on the studies that were suggesting that there is an increase in the incidence of meningitis in college populations, issued a recommendation that students coming to college or students that are currently attending college consider getting the meningitis vaccine. And we've adopted that recommendation. We're making that recommendation to our students as well, and we offer the vaccine at the health center.
And has response been good to that so far?
It has been. It hasn't been as intense as we expected. It's been relatively good. I think we have something like 50 to 75 vaccines scheduled that have already been requested. So the response has really been pretty good.
Have you been seeing a lot of people in this year thus far, cold season-wise?
Colds are always big for us. Sinus infections, upper respiratory infections are something that we treat year-round. In terms of any peculiar, flus or particular strains of colds or cold-like symptoms, we're not seeing anything out of the ordinary so far this year.
Okay. Let's talk about you for a little bit. You said that you didn't start in college health. Where did you come from?
I came from, I started off in hospitals. I worked at a private psychiatric hospital for 10 years and then did consulting on accreditation surveys for another 3 years on top of that.
Okay, and how did you find your way into Clarion and the whole college thing?
My wife is originally from this area. I was here for about a year and I saw the advertisement in the newspaper. I'd always been interested in the academic environment. So I applied and was fortunate enough to be the successful candidate, and it's really turned out well. It's much more complex than what I had originally imagined.
How long has Keeling been in existence here at Clarion?
The cornerstone on the building, the Keeling Health Center, I believe is 1970. I know that it was in existence prior to that. How long before, I'm not certain. But the building itself has been there since 1970, and at one time it was that whole building. It's only about 25% of it right now. We even had something like an operating suite with the big operating lamp and everything else. So we're a little different kind of operation now.
Okay, so what all is offered there? I mean, is it an alternative to a hospital? Does it serve as that, or does it just serve as an alternative to our physician?
Again, it's very similar to what you'd find in a physician's office. If you're going to compare it to anything, that's probably the closest comparison. To some extent, we function like an urgent care center. It's not the core of what we do. What we really don't do is emergency. In the event of emergency, the best bet is still to call public safety or 911. If we have an event occur on site or somebody comes in with an emergency, we can certainly administer first aid, attempt to stabilize that person until the ambulance arrives. But we're really not equipped, we're really not staffed to handle emergencies, and obviously we're not open 24 hours a day.
Right. And what are the hours there?
8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
And how can people get in contact with there?
Extension 2121.
2121. All right, that's easy to remember. All right, Randy Rice, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We'll be back after this.
Getting out from the crowd is easy when you stop in at Fashion Bug, located in the Clarion Mall. Whether you're looking for junior trendy, girls, or fashion for women, they have it all with many different styles. With our newly expanded shoe and accessory department, you're surely to find that special touch to enhance that new outfit. And if you have a fashion question, our experts are here to help. That's Fashion Bug, located in the Clarion Mall, just off Exit 9 of Interstate 80. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. till 9 p.m. Sunday from noon till 5.
Where have all the children gone? Long time passing.
Every day, 10 children are killed by gunfire. You can help stop the violence. Call 1-800-WE-PREVENT. Not one more lost life. Not one more grieving family. Not one more.
Gone to graveyards one by one. Oh, when will we ever learn?
News travels fast. That's why you need the speed and accuracy of a news team that brings coverage closer to home. Every Tuesday and Wednesday night, join TV5 News for Clarion's only live local newscast on television at 8. Tune in for the latest in regional, state, and national news. Plus, with our newspaper exchange partner, the Clarion News, teaming up to bring coverage closer to home every Tuesday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Clarion's only live local newscast on television at 8 is here on TV5.
All right, we want to once again thank Randy Rice from the Keeling Health Center at Clarion University for joining us today. It was a good health week, as we've dubbed it. We had the American Cancer Society on last night, and American Red Cross, on last night, and Randy Rice from the Keeling Health Center on tonight. So it was a good health week. Thank you for joining us. And just a program note, coming up in 2 weeks on Feedback, Clarion University President Diane Reinhardt will be joining us. We want to tune in for that. I'm Mark Espadakis. Thanks for watching Feedback. Have a good day.